Time Justin's talking, everyone will be here, ready to go. Is that all right?
All right, we
Sounds
are
great.
recording. Yep.
Okay, so welcome everybody. This is the Denver Adobe Creative Cloud user group. There are 3 of us who are user group managers. We're probably on the top row, I don't know. So Barb, who's talking, and then Melissa, and then Myra. So Melissa, we're all Adobe community professionals. We're all obviously user group managers. Melissa is a virtual event producer and Adobe trainer, and Myra is actually a technical support and learning consultant for Ajar Productions. So she'll be doing some tech support during this presentation, which is great. I'm an Adobe certified instructor. My company is Rocky Mountain Training out of Evergreen. And I'm not going to talk anymore because we've got Justin here, who is the owner and founder of Ajar Productions and the developer of in5. And he's going to take over and tell us all kinds of great stuff. So be sure you're muted. I'll do the same. And then we'll let Justin just start talking. He'll share his screen when he's ready. Hey, Ren. Okay, I'm done talking.
Right. Thanks, Barb. Hi, Ren. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for showing up. Thank you to Barb, Melissa, and Myra for having me. And we were kind of joking. We're all dealing with our own natural and man-made disasters right now. So I'm in the Bay Area in California. Haven't been outside in a while, and not just from COVID, but from all the smoke. So it's nice to see you guys. And I'm going to talk about creating interactivity from InDesign today. So hopefully most of you are familiar with using InDesign. It's Adobe's page layout tool. It also happens to have a bunch of interactive tools in it. And as long as you have somewhere to go with that interactivity, it means that you can create really cool stuff without having to code. So that's what I'm going to talk about. And just to give you an overview, I'll give you an idea of kind of what formats are out there, what you're looking at, and why my product is something you might be interested in if you want to create interactivity from InDesign. I'll give you a short history on where it comes from, and we'll look at some customer examples of things people have actually created with it. And then I'll go into a demo in InDesign and show you how the stuff is created. And we'll have some time for Q&A at the end. I'll stay as long as you have questions and as long as they let me. And if you have questions at any point, go ahead and you can put them in the chat, and Myra will be answering, but also we might interject and talk about them. So just fire when a question comes to mind, and if we don't get to it, just remind us at the end. All right, so in the title we talk about interactive PDF. I find it's one of the best touch points to get people into thinking about the topic, because we don't really have a good name for what we call all this. We have this kind of random collection of all this interactive stuff, but interactive PDF is one of the ones as designers we tend to think about most often. And the challenge with interactive PDF is that it's not very interactive. The only things that really work in it are, buttons a little bit for kind of showing and hiding other buttons, and hyperlinks. That's about it. Back in the day, it used to support audio and video. Yeah, and maybe a little bit more, but the trick is that was based on the Flash player. So that used to come installed with Adobe Acrobat or Adobe Reader. When those are about the only things people were using, Flash player was tucked inside of that. So you could have somebody who wasn't a designer, just a business client or regular average user. As long as they had that, they'd see the video, and things would work as you'd expect. But then there are also these things, even since Flash has gone away, that never worked in interactive PDF. So in InDesign, you can create something called multi-state objects using the object states panel. That lets you change the display of objects, and it's kind of the key to all interactivity, just the fact that you can trigger something with a button and change how your piece looks. And I'll say piece, I'll refer to a lot of different things because there's a broad range of things you can create. You can create things that are kind of like websites or microsites. You can create digital magazines. You can fold them into mobile apps. You can create web banners, all kinds of different stuff. So I'll be talking generically, and if at any point you want, precision about can I make this, just put it in the chat pod and we'll talk about it more. So in creating all these things, multi-state objects are huge. They're not supported by interactive PDF. Animation from InDesign, which is, I'll show you, is like the easiest animation to create because they did a brilliant job when they put this into InDesign like over a decade ago. And then there's additionally there's the audio and video, and there's other things that you might think about you might want to do in this day and age, like making something responsive so it actually changes based on the viewer's device. If they're looking at a phone, maybe you want to have a completely different layout show up. And there's little things like being able to put animated GIFs in that work, or being able to embed HTML from, say, Google Maps, or put a YouTube video in if you don't want to use the native video. Or if you want to do something like scrolling frames, or, I'll show you there's a bunch of other advanced stuff that in5 adds on top of InDesign, like a 3D flip card. So we'll look at those in a minute. And just briefly, the history of how this product came about. I was a designer developer and I worked with designers a lot. And when the iPad came out, my career seemingly tanked, or so I thought, because I was working in Adobe Flash all the time. And I was highly sought after because I could make stuff that worked on all screens. And then Steve Jobs came out and said, we are not going to support Flash. And Adobe said, okay. And that was the end of that. So I was looking for something that I could work with designers on, because we had people who knew InDesign, but we didn't necessarily have a lot of people who were both designers and developers, because we needed developers who cared about what things look like. So I found that InDesign had all this stuff, but there was nowhere to go with it. So I kickstarted a project. This was 2012, and a bunch of people supported it, and the in5 was born, and it's been constantly revised and upgraded to what I'm going to show you right now. So I'm going to start sharing my screen, and we'll look at some customer examples. And hopefully you can see my screen now. Somebody holler at me if you can't see the screen. I'm just moving some elements around so that I can see what I'm looking at. There we go. So this is an annual report. This is one of my favorite examples that a customer has created of animation. Now I'm going to turn the page, and you can see that there are animations that get triggered as the pages change, and they're really well thought out. This is mostly just the designer's ingenuity in creating things. She uses the diagonal lines a lot to bring things in. And so I'm just clicking through the pages. This is one of my favorites, and I'll show you. I kind of tried to recreate this in the demo doc, so we'll look at that in InDesign in a moment. So it's just really cool. It's really eye-catching. And this is another report that she did a year later. And just to show you the flexibility of what we're working with HTML and exporting from in5, is that we can completely change the look. So this first one slid as a transition, and the next year had a page flip animation to change pages. And you can see she's still got these brilliant animations in here. This example it is really good at showing uses of multi-state objects. So you can take a multi-state object, have essentially an empty state in that, so that you don't see it, and then something happens and it appears, and you can remove it. So it looks like these dialogues that show up, and you can close them. And they use this to show all kinds of different interactive stuff. I think, let me see if I can find one that has rollovers. Some of them have animation rollovers. Yeah, so this one has rollovers in addition. But these that I'm clicking through, these are just states in an object within InDesign. And I'll show you how that's set up in a little bit. Ren is on the call. So this is a recent example that Ren did. This is a portfolio piece for, it's a visitor's guide, a prototype visitor's guide to Vancouver. And she's showing off a lot of the really cool features in InDesign that in5 supports. And I think I can do this pull out if I hold the shift key. That's normally on mobile, but I'm using the scroll wheel to move that in and out. And yeah, I'm just gonna move things around. I can't see all the navigation because of the screen sharing, so that's why I'm doing these kind of like awkward page swipes to change pages. You can see she's got some nice animation in there. It's a really slick piece. And this one, check out the animation there. This is a guide. Again, it's using the multi-state objects to create this pop-up effect. And then they've got some really cool animations. So watch when I click this engineer button, what happens to the rocket. It takes off and then it changes the next page. And they've designed this to not strictly enforce a certain way of doing things, but certainly guides the user through the process. So I click all these steps, and then when I click step 5, I get to the next button. So it kind of sets me along in a particular order. And there's a menu up here, again, thinking about things like multi-state objects, being able to show the state with these buttons inside. You can notice there's rollovers, and I can hide that as well, or go back to the beginning. And then one more example, just of something different that you can do. This is a product of in5's presentation mode. So I'll double click on this and it goes to full screen. And then I can use the mouse, or I can use the arrow keys or space bar. And you can see it has presentation features that you might expect in PowerPoint. And I just set them up with basically a simple checkbox when I exported. And I can build in the animations. So these are those easy InDesign animations. I'm just clicking the next button and it's rolling through them one at a time, just like you'd expect in a PowerPoint. And then speaking to a presentation expert, I was like, hey, what do you want to do? What do you want to make easier in presentations that you can't do now? And so I added, based on his feedback, this ability to do these push transitions. So I can go forward and back, and you have this nice long background that gets animated between the slides. And then there is a vertical one here. And then there's a more sophisticated one here that moves both vertically and horizontally. And I made it really easy in InDesign with the push of a button to chop up those images and sort them across pages and generate the transitions for you, so you can have those really cool push transitions. So you can see going from like digital magazine to sort of digital brochure, landing page, all kinds of different things. And this is the document we're going to take a look at today in InDesign. And I'll show you what it looks like in the browser first. So I've got a table of contents on the first page. This is a live table of contents generated in InDesign. And I can click on that, and there's a scrolling frame. And I've got a menu down here that lets me navigate to different things. And I want to try and remember to show you how to create this menu like super easy. But this is, again, another example of a multi-state object being controlled with buttons. So I'll go and I'll show you there's a video embedded in here that plays. And again, I can't see the navigation so well, so pardon me there. There's an animation that plays on page load, but I can also trigger this sequence of animations with a button. Very easy to do. And then here's the animation where I'm trying to mimic what the designer of the annual report was doing. And so we can take a look at that if we have time, but it's pretty simple. It's just a matter of timing things and using some of the tricks in the really cool animation tools in InDesign. And here's another use of multi-state objects. So I can click and change the content on screen here, and I can trigger an animation within an object state. These are 3D flip cards that I was referring to. And I want to call attention to the fact that this is a responsive document. So you can see it's scaling proportionally as I change the size of the browser window. But if I go down even further, it becomes a portrait shape. So this is a completely different layout created in InDesign. And now the flip cards are vertical because I set them up differently in that layout. And then here's 3 different slideshows, and they're just timed to animate differently. Also very easy to set up. We can take a look at that in a minute. Another different use of the multi-state object, again, kind of that pop-up effect. And then the idea with multi-state objects is actually on this page, you can think about if you wanted to create complex nonlinear navigation, you can even have things that are sort of options, but it's not clear to the reader that they're options. So you might click on something and it takes you to a next step. In this case, I've colored this blue so you can see that this one is a result of me clicking the blue button. But if I click the red one, I could have them look identically, and they could actually take me on 2 separate paths. So unlike other formats like a PDF or like an EPUB that are built into a reader and they're meant to be books, this is unconstrained. So if you want to do something that winds you around, or let's say even better, focuses the user on something really specific. So if you're designing something with a purpose like getting a sale, then what you want to do is not overwhelm the viewer or the reader immediately, but you present them with options and you can funnel them down in your document to the most relevant information to them, instead of giving them like a huge data sheet with a bunch of information on it that just makes their eyes gloss over. So this page sort of loosely illustrates that concept.
Hey, Justin.
And
there's
yeah.
a question, and I'm not sure because I think flip cards are MSOs, right? And so someone,
Yes.
Maurice has asked, can you add videos to the flip cards? And I wasn't sure if that would work in the flip card.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure you can.
Okay.
Nobody, to my knowledge, I haven't seen anybody do it, but there's no reason that you can't. And it should, yeah, if you set it up to autoplay, it should play when the card gets flipped over and then stop itself when you flip it back over.
Cool. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you for the question, Myra. And thank you, Maurice. This page shows, this is an image sequence, but it's a very specific type of image sequence. And in this one, this is a 3D animation that was exported as a series of PNG files. And then I can take it and swipe across it, and it actually animates in 3D. Hopefully you can see my cursor as I'm moving around. It is causing this to animate. So that's the document as it looks when I've exported it with in5. Let's take a look at what it's like in InDesign, and I'll show you how to set up some of these pieces. So here is my document in InDesign. And just to show you, this is a live table of contents, and it's connected to the headings in the document. I could say, let's change this from topic of the week to topic this week. Go to this frame, go up to layout and choose update table of contents. And now it says topic this week. And this is linked. So all I did was generate a table of contents from the layout menu, and it linked everything, and I've got this all connected. The scrolling frame, the way this is set up is there is a text frame in here. Let me double click and then hit escape. And hopefully you can see that this frame extends beyond what you can see. And that's the actual content. And then I'll hit escape once more, and you'll see that there is a container frame that is the mask of this, and that's what's causing it to scroll along with this interactive widget. So I'll go up to the in5 menu, which is something that you see installed when you something you see show up when you install in5. And so I'm going to go down to the interactive widgets section and to the scrolling frames. And then once I've I just use a special command in InDesign to cut something and paste it in. I have to use paste into. And then once I do that, I can set how it's to scroll. So by default it'll be off, and I can just change it and say, oh, I want that to vertically scroll. That's all I had to do to create that scrolling frame. A video is literally just a matter of placing. All I have to do is go up to File, choose Place, and insert an MP4 video. And that's going to work on all devices. And in addition to the media panel options, in5 extends the video capabilities significantly. So I want to call attention to some of that. I'll go up to the in5 menu, interactive widgets again, and this time choose video. And it has a lot of the options that you'd see from the media panel. They're doubled up here so you can access them in one place. But there's also some other things. So Chrome and Safari essentially block video from auto playing when you enter a site unless audio is muted. So in this case, if you just had video that's playing, let's say as a background image or an animation, you could select autoplay and then you can choose mute, and that would make it so your video would actually play in the output. And then there's some other things you can control the fitting and the skin. So you can make this so that there's actually no controller whatsoever. And that way, in the case of the animation or the background image on a page that I was talking about, you don't have video controls, distracting or having unnecessary interactivity if you just want the video playing. The other thing that's really cool in this panel that I've added is the end action. So at the end of the video, you can have it automatically go to the next page. That works well in self-running presentations, which if you want to talk about, put that in the chat pod. We can talk about that later. You can also go to state of a multi-state object. So let's say you wanted to have a video play and then have a call to action button come up. You want somebody to do something, like click here once they've watched the video. You can trigger a multi-state object to change at the end of the video automatically. You can also add captions, which is something that is unique to in5 among all the InDesign interactivity. The animation on this page is ridiculously easy to set up. So maybe I'll go ahead and show you what that's like. I'm going to select all three of these and go to the animation panel. And then all I have to do to make the animation happen is to choose one of these presets. So I'll choose fade in, and I probably don't need it to take 1 second. So I'm going to move it down to 0.5 seconds. I can change anything else here if I want to. And then the other thing I can do in the timing panel is rearrange these. So if I wanted to have them in reverse order, I could do this. And note something here, I've named these specifically, so it's really easy to see 1, 2, 3. That's something really important when you're creating these. Let me select one so you can actually see the name. Is to give it a name, because once you get in the timing panel, if you see rectangle, 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 it's going to be really hard to figure out what's what. But you can double click on these and it will select them also, so that's useful. So you can rearrange them, and then you can preview them in the EPUB interactivity panel and see they're playing in reverse there. So that animation was set up from scratch, super easy. I don't have the replay button connected, so let me go ahead and do that. Also very easy to do in the buttons and forms panel. I'll go to animation, and I have to add this 3 times. So I'll just keep going and doing this. And I'll do it in the same order that I just did, so they're in reverse. So I just have to select these and make sure I'm playing them in that order. And then if I go to the timing panel, you can see I also have timing for those objects. So let's say I want to rearrange it so it goes 1, 2, 3. I'll go back to the buttons and it's updated, just so you can see those are parallel. And then I'm going to preview that, and I have to hit the play button to refresh the page. So there's the reverse order. And when I hit the replay button, it goes top to bottom, in sort of standard order. So animation controlled with a button, literally seconds to set up. And that's all native InDesign. So if you're wondering where these panels are that I already have open on the right side, they're mostly under window interactive. So you see there's all kinds of goodies in there. Animation, button and forms. There's a preview panel, hyperlinks, liquid layout, media, object states. Most of these things in5 uses. This is a slightly more complicated version of animation. And so I'll give you the quick version, and if you have questions, we can talk about it more at the end. This is a little more complicated because what I did was take a preset, like let's say I did like fly in from the left here. And what I would do is when I click on this, hopefully you can see there is, let me see if I remember the remember the keyboard shortcut. Very good. Hopefully you can see this green line here. That is a motion path. And that is InDesign's way of telling me how this animates. And in addition to that, if I go into the animation panel and I check this button down here that says show animation proxy, it'll also show me where the animation starts. And so I can use these things to change how this works. So here I've actually selected the motion path. I'll try and zoom in again so you can see that. And then I'm going to get the sub-selection tool and try and just get one point on this. Okay, so now you can see I'm manipulating only that bottom point, and I'm putting it so it goes along this yellow line. And then my animation is going to travel along that line. And I essentially do the same thing with this one down here, and make it so it goes on this line. And then I can, tinker with all of these pieces so they work together. It's a lot of, trial and error and getting everything to the right point. But you can see there's enormous power in this animation panel and these tools once you know how to use them, because they put all the easy stuff right out in front so you can get started. But then there are these advanced tools like the show animation proxy and the ability to manipulate this path. And this path can be anything I want, right? I actually can make a much more complicated path if I want it to curve, for example. I can do all kinds of weird stuff with it. And now I have to try and remember how I do this. I think I cut it. And I don't know if I remember how to do this, but I think there's some way that I'm able to paste this as the motion path. Gotten way out ahead of myself because I haven't done that in a long time. But anyway, I can do that. I can also, I could actually take this path and manipulate it directly. So I could add a point to it, take a point away. Let's see if I got the keyboard shortcut right. I can, should be able to make it into a curve. There we go. So I'm holding the Option key on the Mac here and I'm making that into a curve. So I can do all kinds of stuff with the animation. It's not as if it's locked down, but the stuff that's right on the surface is super easy stuff, so that when we're making this kind of animation, we can do it in 10, 15 seconds. And most of it, like I showed in this cool annual report example, this is just inventiveness, right? This is taking these rather simple tools and figuring out how to use them. It's like, so I've got a diagonal line in my design. I'm going to make this animate along the diagonal line. The multi-state objects use the object states panel. And the way you create a multi-state object is you literally, let me do one off to the side here so you can just see what it's like to create it. And I'll give it some kind of fill. I don't really care what. And then I'm just going to convert this to a multi-state object. And now I have two versions of this. So in the second state, I can change the color. And now I can toggle between these. I can create as many states as I want, and I can control what state is being displayed with buttons. So let me just select that and delete it. And I'll move over here and show you how there are all these multiple states in here. So these are a little bit harder to work with because you can kind of imagine these things are like groups embedded in groups. So there's a lot of double clicking and trying to find, what's the right object I'm working on. And you can paste into these states if you accidentally create something later and you want to get it in there. There's a button here in the object states panel. But this is an incredibly powerful tool, and you can do almost anything you can imagine with interactivity just using object states. So another example of the object states, which Myra brought up with the question earlier, is these 3D flip cards. So if you remember these in the output, let me go back to them. And they flip over like this. This is animation you can't create natively in InDesign. So what in5 does is use the multi-state object as a base. And then if you go up to interactive widgets and choose 3D flip card, all you have to do is select an option from the menu. And then it takes care of it when it exports and makes it 3D flipping animation. Again, in this page, we've got multi-state objects. So these are buttons. Let me select the multi-state object and just show you it has these different pop-ups. Inside it is a button here that is set to close the multi-state object by going to the empty state. Here are the list of all the states. It just says go to empty. Now if I go back to object states and go back to the empty state, essentially hiding it, I've just got a rectangle there, a small rectangle with no stroke or fill. I have it so it's not blocking anything on screen. And the other thing on here is that each one of these are buttons. So if I go to the buttons and forms panel, something should show up there, but oh, you know what? Maybe I didn't, because this is the start document, I haven't set it up. So let me show you how I do that. I would click the plus button and go to state as my action. And then I would set this in this case, oops, I got the wrong menu. Excuse me, the wrong object. So there's the menu on this page as well, but I don't want to access that. I believe that's on the master page, but InDesign knows that it's here and that I might be able to access it. I'm going to change to this contact info. Again, really helpful if you name these, because by default in the multi-state, and excuse me, in the object states panel, these are going to show up as multi-state 1, multi-state 2. And that's just not useful when you're trying to put interactivity on it. So I recommend giving it a name. Now that I have that, I know I want to go to urgent care. So if I were to click this button, let me preview this page. Just refresh the preview here. If I click this button, it goes to the urgent care. Same with these, which are already set up. Not much new on this page, really just there to show you the idea. And then this is the image sequence. This is literally a set of images, and I just used this tool, which is essentially inherited at the time that in5 was pretty new. Adobe was experimenting with this thing called the Digital Publishing Suite or Digital Publishing Solution. They called it DPS, and they were allowing people to make apps with InDesign. And some people who were doing stuff and using in5 asked if I could support the DPS widgets. So a lot of them now live in in5 rebuilt as these interactive widgets. And under the interactive widgets, I'm just going to select the image sequence. And here, this points me to where the images are. I just select the folder, and it can have a bunch of PNGs. These are just exported from Photoshop, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and so on. Or they could be JPEGs. and I choose some settings. So this could play like a slideshow, but in this case, I have it set up to change on swipe and to loop. And so that's how you get this effect. Go to it, that it's spinning around. And we've added a little bit of acceleration. So that it sort of played with the swipe I have on the screen navigation. But it's got a little acceleration. So even when I let go, it keeps on spinning based on how fast I was twirling it. So that is the image sequence. So essentially, in5 is kind of working on all these different levels. This is the building the InDesign document. So I want to show you one more thing to make it easier to build stuff in InDesign, and then let's look at the export, and then maybe we can move on to some Q&A after that. So be thinking of any questions you might have.
Justin, there is a question on scaling video, and so I was wondering if you were going to be showing any responsive layouts that might have video in it that would show scaling.
Yeah, so typically what you would do is not to scale it. Actually, this is a good time to talk about responsive. So one thing you might notice in this panel is that there are two parallel layouts. So let's talk about that. So for instance, here's the first page of the layout we've been looking at, but there's a parallel layout here that is portrait. Now I can make a bunch of these, so I could also make them, I could make them for the phone. I don't necessarily just have to have two layouts. I could have, 5 or 6 if I really wanted. But the idea is that in InDesign, I can create an alternate layout, and they're displayed in parallel, so I can kind of look at them. And then mostly I have very similar content. So if I zoom out a little bit, you can see kind of how this layout, I've adjusted it so things fit on the screen and kind of make sense. Same if I go to another one of these pages. They parallel each other, but you could have completely different content. But let's say we have this page and we want to have video on both of them. Now, the video, what you would do is create a different container and put it on here, and you would need to, let's go to the video actually. In this case, I left the video the same, but I believe if I scaled it down, I would have to use the video widget, and I would have to set the frame fitting. And I may be wrong about that. But I would also recommend thinking about, if you're thinking about having video on a mobile device, you might want to have a smaller file. So you might want to have an alternative video that you have set up here. But the video itself isn't going to scale, right? Because the layout essentially swaps. So if we go to the video page, you can see the video is just scaling with the page, right? It's not liquid. Now there is a way to use liquid layout, and in that case, you might be looking at a video if you set up liquid layout rules. I'm not going to get into that because that is it's more complicated. I have videos just showing how to use that. And you can mix and match that with this responsive layout feature that swaps the layouts. So instead of proportionally scaling, you could have it scaling by rules, and this page would always fill up 100% of the width and height, and then the items on the page will be scaling based on rules in InDesign's liquid layout panel.
Justin, there's a question on this too.
Yeah.
It is how Richard would like to know the difference between liquid layout and responsive.
So liquid layout is something that exists in InDesign. If I go to interactive, this is the liquid layout panel. Pull it out so we can all see it a little better. What it allows you to do is essentially take items on the page. This is the best version of it, right? Because there's all these other ones, but really the object-based is the one that really does anything. And you can have it resize with the height and width of the page. And then when you export with in5, so I'm going to jump ahead a little bit. Let me save this document. And wait, before I show you this, I'm going to show you, well, I'll jump ahead to the exporting. Okay, so say we're ready to export this document. What I recommend the first time you use this is try the Easy Export Wizard. And what this does is give you options on what type of document you're exporting. And it gives you a recommendation. And if you have alternate layouts that match the page length, each one of them has matching page length, but they're differing sizes, it automatically detects that you have responsive layouts. So it kind of does that in the background, and you don't have to select any options. So you select how you're going to export, you click next, you select if you want editable text or pixel perfect text, next, give it a name, export, you're done, and you have that output. Okay, so now this is the more sophisticated version. You can always get here by clicking the advanced button, which is kind of cool because then it takes all of the options that I set up in the wizard, like the responsive layouts, and applies it in here. So from here, what I would choose as my page format would be liquid. That will then use all of the liquid layout rules to scale the pages. And I hesitate to like go looking there. I have a video that like shows the difference between all of them, but the liquid layout literally fills the screen. And this came out kind of before CSS media queries were really a thing. And so this was Adobe's attempt, the realization that they needed to account for different devices, but the standard that controls responsive display in HTML wasn't really set into place yet. So they made a good attempt, a guess, but then never revised it. So it's not really adequate by itself to create something that's responsive. Because what you end up getting is you design one layout and you squish everything down, and all the stuff just gets bunched up in the middle and starts overlapping. And you can mix that with responsive layouts in in5, which I'll elaborate on in a second. And then it kind of makes more sense. And the other thing you can do with these is you can set up rules and then create alternate layouts. And then InDesign uses your layout rules. So if I pin something to the top left, it knows to keep it in the top left when I create an alternate layout. So it's useful in that way. Now the difference between straight up liquid layout and responsive layouts is in5. It has very little to do with InDesign, except what it's doing is taking your alternate layouts and creating breakpoints and swapping your layout. So that's what this is. So this is a responsive layout where it's like, okay, we're in one layout and I'm going to scale down. It's like, hey, no, you want this other layout. So that's what a responsive layout is. And you can see the page items aren't moving around on the page. They're just scaling proportionally. The whole page is scaling. And that's another feature of in5, which is called desktop scaling. Again, it's automatically taken care of if you're in the Easy Export Wizard. Pretty much just applies that if it makes sense to what option you're choosing. If you're in the full dialog, which I'll show you the other way to get to it, is in5 export HTML5 with in5, then you'd go into advanced and you'd say use desktop scaling for mobile and choose best fit. So that's what this is doing. So there's all these different scaling options, and I have this video on it, but really the simple thing that most people want is they want this desktop scaling on and probably responsive layouts. And so that means setting up these alternate layouts in InDesign and then exporting accordingly, and it keeps the integrity of your layout for the viewer. All right, so let me do one more thing here in InDesign. I'll show you another one of these features while you're working in InDesign that you can use with in5 are the build wizards. And what these do is create things with actual InDesign elements, but they do all the work for you because it's a lot to learn all the interactivity. And then even once you know it, it takes a lot of time to set these things up. So these just do it with a click of the button. So I'm going to show you the menu builder, which is how I created the original menu in here. automatically, it knows that I'm not on a master page and gives me the option to apply this to a master page. So the menu appears on all the pages and doesn't get, reused. It reuses it in the output, so it doesn't waste file size. I have 3 different types, which give you totally different effects. You can do different menus on different layouts. So you might want a compact menu on your mobile layout, but maybe a larger menu or a top bar on your desktop layout. Those are different options you can set up really easily. You can generate it from bookmarks or from any of the paragraph styles inside your document. And the bookmarks that I have are created automatically when I generated the table of contents. So there they are. That's what's going to be used. I can set a default UI to generate and then add a drop shadow. And the most important thing here is that it's going to create and apply menu styles for me. So this is really useful because it just makes my life easier, right? If you use InDesign, you know that paragraph styles, character styles, object styles, these things make your life easier. When you go in and change something, it just ripples through your whole document. So this wizard is set up to work with InDesign in the best way possible. So let's just go ahead and build it. It's automatically going to generate all this. It uses a bunch of the styles that I'd already set up in this document. So you'll see some of it looks unique and some of it's going to look like the menu I have in there because of the styles I set up. So this is a multi-style object. I'll just switch to the open state and zoom in. You can see it created all these menu items, and these are all live buttons. So go in and select that button, go to the Buttons and Forms panel, and it's got a go-to state, closes the menu for me, and goes to that destination, which is the scrolling frame page in this case. Or if I go to this one, get on the right layer, this is the video page. So it built this entire menu automatically for me, and it's still editable. Like if I just wanted to get rid of one of these items, I can just make sure I have it selected and hit my delete key, and it's gone. I don't want that to appear in the menu. Totally editable, ready to go. So that is essentially what you can do in InDesign. We skipped ahead a little bit and looked at the export. That's how you get it out. And then these are the different results with exporting it. So hopefully that gives you a pretty good overview, and I'll switch over now so maybe we can take some questions. Thanks everybody for listening. Appreciate it. All right, I don't know how you want to do it, Myra, but if you want to start hitting me with questions, or people, I'm open to people turning on their mics too.
Yeah, Barb, is that okay if people turn on their mics?
Yes, I was muted. I think Myra hit the questions as they came out. She was doing an amazing job. I was just watching her knock them off as they were being asked. Can you see the chat window, Justin, just to dig through?
I'm looking at it now. Thank you, Erica. Thank you, Michelle. Thanks, Cody. Debbie, let's see. In5 reorganize the hyperlinks from ID automatically generated TOC. Will it recognize the hyperlinks? Yes, it does in this document, in fact. I'm not sharing now. But in the document I showed you, yes, that was just a table of contents on the first page that I generated. And when I clicked on them, it took me to those pages.
Did you see, Richard has a question not related to animation. What was the question, Richard?
Sure.
Oh, he said, do you see the question in the chat?
Is that I'm having problems with image quality on both PDF and HTML exports. Any tips? PPI amounts. Okay. Okay, so with both PDF and HTML, there's 2 elements you want to think about. One is the source images that you're using, which is what you're alluding to. And the other thing is how you're setting up your export. So you're going to have options for different image quality when you export. Generally speaking, I see a lot of people's files. It's interesting working with so many different files, seeing how different people work. And occasionally somebody will send me something that's like, I don't know, many, many gigabytes. And I'll go in and look, and there's like images that are like 500 megabytes a piece or something crazy. I don't think you ever need that, quite frankly, unless you're working with a large scale, billboard or something. You're just not going to need that kind of size. So that gives you a kind of broad ballpark. You don't need to go that big, but I think it never hurts to basically be working with 300 PPI. So you're starting with print quality. And in most cases, you might be working with print. This happens a lot where people are starting in print and then they're creating digital versions. And you definitely don't need to replace the images from your print when you're doing digital, right? You can just leave those. And most of yours are screen captures at 92. Okay, thanks, Richard, for that context. Yeah, so coming in, yeah, I mean, 72 is the bare minimum, right? That's what most screens used to have. Nowadays, a lot of them are, like 92, 96, and then you've got all these high def displays that are 200, 300, 400 and up PPI. And so, yeah, 92 PPI images are gonna look rough on high def displays. There's not much you can do about that. Yeah, and as Myra's alluding to in the chat, you don't want to upscale those if you're starting from 92. What you can do is if you get a really large screen capture, if you shrink it down, it's going to look better, right? Because that's going to increase your PPI. And then when you're exporting, just make sure you're choosing an option that isn't resampling it smaller than 92. So if you're choosing like the smallest quality, you're looking at 72, which means it's going to be downsampling from 92 to 72. That's not good. So you might want to choose, in the case of a PDF, like a kind of medium option, which is like 150 PPI. And in case of in5, you might as well just do high definition. There's also an option to use the source images, so it'll grab your original images and not resample them, which will probably be good, because every time the image is resampling, I mean, unless you're going PNG to PNG, it's, if there's any JPEG anywhere in there, it's going to be losing quality every time it resamples. So hopefully that helps a bit. Kathy, thanks for your question. Can you talk about uploading once you have the HTML5? What's the process to upload to the server? Is this complicated, or is it something where I just send the HTML5 over to the client's IT department? So if you're uploading it, I have a totally free course on this. There's we have premium video courses, and it's called Ajar Academy. And you could subscribe to that whole thing. It's kind of like Lynda or LinkedIn Learning, but specific to InDesign, interactivity, and in5. And on there, there's a totally free course that you do not have to pay for, which is like, how do I put this stuff on my website? Because that's a frequently asked question, and that's something that somebody, thanks, Myra put the link in the chat, somebody did for me at one point, and it just like opened up my world, that I could have my own website. And it was like inexpensive. It's like a few dollars a month, and I have a domain, and it felt like I had started a company as soon as I had my own website. So I'll walk you through that entire process, and you basically get from your web host FTP credentials. You set up your FTP app, and so it's saved in there, and you have two sides to that. There's your local computer, remote computer. You just drag the files over. Once they're on a public place on your website, you can view them with a URL, and then you can share that URL. So that's publishing yourself. Myra's got a link to, there's an article that kind of explains some of this, and then it links to that in that free video course as well. And so that's publishing yourself. Now, in your follow-on question about the IT department, really all you have to do in that case is zip it up and put it on some kind of sharing site. I wouldn't try and attach it over email. One, because it's going to be large, and two, because a lot of email clients block JavaScript, and it's going to contain JavaScript in it. They see it as a security risk because their email is running on HTML. So so what you want to do is put it on Dropbox or Box, or if you have some corporate version or something that you're using, put it on there, send them the shareable link, and they'll download it, and they have their own process for uploading it. So once you get it to them, they'll take care of it. And they'll have a process for it because they'll be putting files on all the time. And the files that are generated are like super common. Like there's nothing special about them. So yeah, there's not going to be some surprise. They literally just have to put them on a web server, and they will work on any web server. Let's see.
Barb, this is a question for you. Do you know in the recording, does the chat get recorded with GoToMeeting?
I don't know. I never look at the recordings, but I can save it.
Okay.
So remember to save it before
Okay.
I close the meeting.
Cool.
Then I'll have a copy of it. I can email it out.
Okay, so somebody says one weird trick I use is to paste the image or screen capture into the, sorry, it keeps jumping, into the good old Paint. Somehow resaving it increases image quality. Cliff, I'm sorry to tell you that might be a fantasy. You cannot increase image quality when it's not there. It might increase file size, but you cannot increase image. You can't invent pixels that aren't there. So be careful with that. Let's see. What else am I missing? Okay, I think I'm caught up on the questions on the chat, but if anybody has anything else, feel free to paste them in there. Also, if you want to speak up, just unmute your mic and jump in.
So while we're waiting for more questions, I just have, I want to let you guys know what's coming next for us. And we do have a couple of little giveaways here. So Ren has a quick question. I'll let you answer that before I go on.
Okay, yeah, thanks. Ren is asking about the responsive layout features. Do they require a different license? Yes, there is a specific license level at which the responsive layout features kick in. So just if you do get to the point where you're looking to purchase, just look, it says right on there, the gold plan is the responsive one, and then everything above it is also responsive. So yeah, pay attention to what features come with different plans. Yes, and just to make it clear, it is a paid subscription product. So just in case anyone didn't hear me say that earlier, don't want you to be disappointed. Okay, I've got some more questions. I can keep going, or Melissa, feel free to jump back in at any point.
Keep going. Just make sure you guys hang around. We're gonna give away a free copy of Creative Cloud for a year. So you keep answering questions, and hopefully they'll be enticed to stick around a few more minutes.
Awesome, thanks guys. Stick around and be here for the giveaway. Jeremy, let's see. A lot of LinkedIn learning lessons on digital publishing for iPad can be applied to in5. That is a helpful comment. Thanks, Jeremy. Yes. So basically, almost all the interactive InDesign that you could find on like LinkedIn Learning, it will apply to in5. Let's see. Yes, Ren, one can upgrade to a gold plan at any point. You can change your plans at any point. The changes are prorated, so you get credit for unused time. Text rendering, did I miss? Just want to make sure I don't miss anything. Okay, so Liliana is asking about text rendering. How can I do that? Is it under the export feature? Let me go ahead and just share my screen again and show that, because it's just easier to see. So in InDesign, now when I export, if I'm using the easy export wizard, it is the second step. So I'll just choose, I'll go back and choose the recommended one again. Choosing editable makes it HTML. So if I choose that and click advanced, you can see this is the option that comes up under text rendering. It's HTML, and it's going to attempt to embed the local fonts. And you have to pay attention to whether or not those fonts are licensed. Now I will say, I don't have open on here. I usually have a live text version, but yeah, you can export with live text. But what I would say is that it takes more setup. So let me go ahead and load an example with live text so you can see it. Check out one of Penny's issues here. So I think these are all linked. Yeah, okay. Let me get to some text I can select. So you can see this is all live text. But what I will say about this is this isn't a print piece that she just took and exported for digital. This required thought in terms of the pages are different lengths, so they fit the content. And she planned these. I believe these are Google fonts, so you can link your export to Google fonts or Adobe fonts, so that it pulls them, from the web and loads them up like this. So it requires a little planning. You're not going to be able to just, in most cases, export live text without thinking about it and have it come out like this. Just because there are too many differences between how InDesign renders text and how text is rendered on the web. And quite frankly, InDesign is just a lot better at it. So the default option is to render these as images so that it preserves the layout exactly. You can export it as text, and this is live text. Like I can go in and change this in the HTML easily. But if you're planning to do that, you do want to think about the setup, and so that's what I'd say about that. And you can find those options in both the exports. Okay, let's see. I gotta find where. So many clients, we have an existing print document that's an InDesign. Clients want to convert something more interactive and engaging. What would be the workflow for doing this successfully? Do you recommend creating a new document or working with the existing document? All print documents have high-res images in place, created with facing pages. So it's really up to you, Kathy, whether you want to go from a print document and just export it, or if you want to kind of recreate it. If you just export it and you've got facing pages on the spread, what a lot of people do is they'll create a flip book, and so you get that effect, and maybe don't have as much interactivity. I recommend, if you're really going to have people viewing it, if it's not just something where you're checking a box like, oh, we need to have a digital version, I'd recommend thinking about creating it from scratch, planning it. Because obviously the way people are going to look at something on the screen is going to be different than they do a printed page. And they're going to engage with it differently. And you're going to have a lot of opportunities to engage them that you don't have in print. And you don't need to show everything on the page all the time, right? If we look at the multi-state objects, you can show stuff selectively. So it depends on your project, depends on your resources, the time you want to spend. But I think if people are really going to be visiting your digital version, take some time and make it really digital. But in terms of the resources in the document, the high-res images and stuff, you don't have to change those. in5 will downsample them as it renders. It'll create the web versions of the images for you, so you don't have to think about any of that.
Do you see the question for the top menu that stays or pins when you scroll? I said it's a frequently requested feature.
It is.
It's a question.
It's coming. I hesitate to guarantee it, but I think it is probably coming in the next version. It might be. I'm hoping it'll be this year. Yeah, this year is a little crazy, to be honest with you. I don't know what's going to happen in November, but
Godzilla comes. No.
And yeah, and I'm kind of consumed with it personally. But this pinning a menu has been a feature that people have mentioned and wanted, and I have in my mind how it's going to be done. So yeah, it's like right on deck. It's going to be in the next feature update. I just don't know exactly when that's going to be, but generally what I like to do is like 2 feature updates a year, and I've done 1 this year. So yeah, maybe that'll get in there. let's see. Having problems with hyperlinks, the TOC is blank. So Manuela, if you're having issues with the TOC being blank after export, reach out to us if you haven't already. If you have any problems with this, like email us, because yeah, we do want to fix the problems, and we do want to make sure everything's working for you. So yeah, definitely, if you've reached out to us, we're working on it, and if you haven't, be sure, and we'll make sure that it gets fixed. Okay, I think that's all the questions I have for right now. So maybe I'll hand it back to Melissa for the giveaway.
Okay, awesome. So I got a couple of things. First, I want to let you know that our next meeting is going to be on November 17th, and it will also be at 6:30 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. So that's 5:30 p.m. for those earlier. You can see it's pitch black here. I've been sitting on my deck and it got really dark. I'm freezing, actually. I need to go in. And that'll be 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And our speaker will be Teresa Jackson. And Teresa is a fabulous instructor. She teaches Lightroom. And we don't know what she's going to talk about yet. She and I are going to have a conversation about it. So I thought I would toss that question actually out to you guys. We can talk about either Lightroom, or we can talk about Lightroom Mobile, or we can talk about some of the mobile apps on the iPad. Teresa's an amazing artist, and she creates stuff on her iPad. So if you guys want to let me know in the chat box what you prefer her to talk about, you know, this is a democracy. I can talk to her about that. So whatever you guys want to learn, we will start asking for a $1 donation for our meetings, and that'll help set off the offset the costs for Meetup and like the GoToMeeting, right? So the applications online cost money. There's monthly fees, and Meetup is ridiculously expensive. So we will start asking for just a $1 donation. So things will be just slightly different on the invite next time. And let's see what else. Oh, this meeting's being recorded. So as soon as we're actually going to give the recording to Justin, he's going to put it on his YouTube, and when he gets that up, we will make sure and get that out to you guys so that you can re-watch it. And I'm going to turn everything over to Barb, and Barb has a couple of fun giveaways for us.
Okay, so we're going to give away two things, a year subscription to the Creative Cloud, and also we're going to give away 15 stock images. Can you hear me? You can hear me, right? Yeah, okay. Let's start with Creative Cloud. And what's happened is people have been leaving since the Justin finished talking during the Q&A. So I'm going to have to call out a couple names probably to get somebody who's still in the room. So just bear with me. I have a randomizer. I'm going to hit the random name. It's got everyone's names that signed up. And Melissa, Myra, keep an eye on who's still here. So where did it go? Hold on.
Okay.
Felipe, I don't think is here. Nope. Trying again. I didn't know what to do about the smaller group, so I just have to go through this. Give me a sec. And the next one is Anne. Is Anne Lizotte here?
I don't think I see Anne.
All right. I'm going to find one of you. As long as you find out this afternoon by 4, you're in. Nope, not here. Kailash.
Oh,
Be here for a while. Fred.
Fred.
No, Fred.
I feel like I'm playing bingo or something because I'm looking at the grid of all the names.
Right. And then this is just giving me ads. I got to scroll through the ads each time I try. Okay. Michael Briggs.
No. Richard, you're funny.
It's like $600. It's worth waiting. Just hold on. Geraldo.
No.
I thought about typing them up. Nikos. These are the people that registered. Oh my goodness.
What was that name?
Okay. Clifford's here. Clifford was here. Clifford Neufeld?
Yes, Clifford. Cliff is
He's
here.
He's
Clifford.
here.
Unmute.
Cliff Newfield.
Yay,
He's
we
still
found somebody.
here. He's here.
Yay!
So Cliff, you have to contact Barb. Yay!
Okay, that was a lot of work, but that's okay. Okay, so Clifford, let me put my email in the GoToMeeting area. Actually, I'll let Melissa or Myra write it, barbara.rockymountaintraining.com. So I've got to go through that list again to get the next winner, which is going to take a few more minutes. Okay, so Clifford, your job is to email me tomorrow and remind me that you were the winner. I just need your Adobe ID, which is the email address you use for Adobe. I don't need your password. Don't send me your password. Just send me whatever email you use to log into your Adobe applications. If you don't have one, you make one, it's free. Okay, so that's the first Creative Cloud giveaway. The second thing we're doing is 15 Adobe stock images. Not only do I've got to find somebody still in the room, but you have to also have an individual license for Creative Cloud, not an enterprise license for Creative Cloud. And you have to, before you can have the images, you must log on to Adobe Stock. So you go to stock.adobe.com, log in with your Adobe ID. Once you've done that, you can log back out, and then you can send me an email and say, okay, I did that, and I want the 15 stock images. Once again, email me to remind you all that. So here we go. Okay. Geraldo, we already, he's came up second time, so he's really not here. Geraldo, it should be right. Maggie? No Maggie.
Oh, Maggie.
Teresa Colvin? Teresa?
No, Teresa.
Olivia Cloud?
I'm here.
Yay! 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 Olivia. Okay. Okay. So is my email over there in the chat?
Yeah, the email. So Olivia, can you see Barb's email? I can type it in again.
Okay, let me go back, scroll back up. Yeah, I got it.
Okay, so
Okay,
both of you want to email me tomorrow. Just remind me that what you won, and I will take care of getting them sent out. It takes about 3 weeks to process, but then you will be getting, these fabulous gifts. So there might be more questions. Yeah, go ahead.
Yay!
Yay! There's Olivia. I can see Olivia. Yay! That's great. Okay, there might be more questions for Justin. That's great. If there are, we can certainly hang out. If you guys have gotten what you need, you can certainly go. But thank you to all of you for joining us tonight. That was great. Myra, you worked really hard during that presentation. Thank you so much for that.
My pleasure.
Justin, that was amazing. Thank you.
Thank you
Good.
so
Yeah,
much.
we hope to see you all next time too. Come on back and see us.
Come back and see us.
It's great. Thank you,
Absolutely.
everybody.
Thank you.
Jeff?
Good night.
Do we
That
want
was
to
great.
put in a plug for his meeting?
Oh, right.
Oh,
Please
yeah.
do that.
Oh yeah, Jeff, you want to talk about your meeting with Justin coming
Yeah.
up on October
He
8th?
hung in the entire way.
You did. Go ahead and unmute yourself.
Yeah, anybody who wants to see Justin's presentation again and possibly ask questions you thought of since now, we're having the meeting again in New Jersey on October 8th, I believe it is, or 9th. I can't remember. I don't have it in front of me. But we're on Eventbrite. You should be able to find us. Hope to see some of you back there in New Jersey on Zoom.
Great. Okay, Michelle, I just gave the link to join, so you'll be on the email list. Just click that link and you can be on and you'll know what we're doing next time. Thanks, everybody. Justin,
Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Justin.
Thanks. I really appreciate it. Thanks for everybody sticking around.
Yeah.
Stay safe.
Great to see you, Ren. These are my dogs. Bye, Jane.
Bye, all.
Everybody.
Bye.